Hello, my name is Miranda Foster, and I am a doctoral student in the Clinical Community Psychology program at the University of South Carolina under the mentorship of Dr. Jessica Bradshaw. Today, I am thrilled to present an overview of our study on early trajectories of sleep in infants who later develop autism spectrum disorder, otherwise known as ASD or autism. So to begin, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by challenges in social interaction and the presence of restricted interests or repetitive behaviors. Sleep challenges are not a core feature of autism, yet 50 to 80% of autistic children experience significant sleep problems compared to about 10 to 30% of neurotypical children. As sleep can have cascading effects on health and neurodevelopment, researchers have become interested in trying to identify when these sleep problems first emerge in children diagnosed with autism. So in our study, we enrolled 79 young infants as early as 1 week of age, and many of them already having an older sibling diagnosed with autism, in a prospective longitudinal study on the early development of autism spectrum disorder. So between 1 week and 6 months of age, the parents of our infant participants completed a retrospective 24-hour sleep log on a monthly basis. This allowed us to see how much their babies were sleeping and when their babies were sleeping. When these infants turned 2 years old, they were given an evaluation for autism provided by trained clinicians on our team. From this evaluation, participants were categorized in one of 3 categories as either typically developing, having autism spectrum disorder or meeting criteria for such, and if they demonstrate some autistic traits but not quite enough to meet an autism diagnosis, they were labeled as exhibiting the broad autism phenotype, otherwise known as BEP. So when looking at their sleep data collected between 0 to 6 months of age, we noticed several interesting patterns. Namely, infants who were later diagnosed with autism slept significantly less within the 24-hour period between 0 to 6 months of age than typically developing infants or those with the broader autism phenotype. Meanwhile, the proportion of time spent asleep at night compared to the day did not significantly differ between groups, meaning that although the total amount of sleep was lower in autistic participants, the distribution of sleep across the 24-hour period did not differ between groups. Yet, when we examined how infant sleep influenced other developmental outcomes at 2 years of age, we found that infants who spent a greater proportion of time asleep at night relative to the day demonstrated a greater understanding of language and more advanced fine motor skills. So what does this all mean? Well, first we found that disrupted sleep begins early in development. Additional research will help us understand how these early disruptions may influence the developing brain in the first year of life. Second, why are infants with autism sleeping less than their non-autistic peers? One possible explanation is that early differences in melatonin production and metabolism may disrupt sustained wakefulness during the day and interfere with continued sleep at night among infants later diagnosed with autism. So while this theory provides a possible explanation for differences in the amount of sleep observed in infants later diagnosed with autism, additional research is needed to measure melatonin levels in samples of infants later diagnosed with autism and examine its relationship to developmental outcomes. So in conclusion, we hope that future research can use other tools such as measuring melatonin in saliva or urine samples and implementing actigraphy to objectively measure sleep of participants in order to further elucidate these findings and create meaningful interventions to improve infant sleep. Thank you.